these London fireworks? Were they woke? Were they wow? Did they make you just not believe your eyes, or did they make you roll your eyes because of the messages about the coronation, the NHS, Windrush, gay marriage, the environment, and no real mention of New Year? And again, it doesn't annoy me, it just makes me roll my eyes. And also that's got us talking as well about the mayor asking for ID to be brought by people who had tickets to go and see the fireworks, and his hypocrisy because he, of course, was against voter ID, saying that it would stop people being able to vote. Now, I had a really interesting discussion with Kevin about this before the break, and I don't think Kevin got my point. And my point is, this actually isn't a conversation about voter ID, whether it's a good or a bad thing. It's a conversation about hypocrisy. Because either you need identification because fraud is a really big thing, or you don't. And I would argue that if you are a mayor of a capital city saying you need ID because there's fraud when it comes to tickets, well, then I would argue that as that mayor, you should probably be in favour of ID for something like a general election, which also could be open to fraud. Now, you may look at the statistics and say, look, there hasn't been any fraud really for elections. But then I would say to you, well, then what are the statistics for frauds around firework displays? And if you were to say, well, there haven't been any, then the argument is that because something could be open to fraud, you need to bring in ID. And if that's the case, why is it okay for fireworks but not okay for an election? Because the Mayor of London would not benefit from the election having ID. And that makes him a hypocrite. So there we go. OK, let's find out on some of these issues what the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, former Brexit Party MEP Ben Habib has to say about this. Morning to you, Ben.
Good morning, Christo. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Oh, hang on. Oh, have you not got identification to have this conversation? Because there is a potential. Firework display fraud, Ben, is a very, very serious issue. And so where is your ID? I mean, is there an argument to say that the mayor is a hypocrite over this? Because, again, I almost don't think this is an argument about whether voter ID is a good thing or not. But my argument is that if you feel, and you are a leader of a city, that ID is necessary for a firework display, well, you're on very dodgy ground then making the argument that ID isn't necessary for an election.
Yeah. I think it's worse than being a hypocrite, isn't it? It's verging on corrupt. It's an admission of corruption almost, isn't it, Christo? The fact that he wouldn't accept ID for electoral purposes says to me he's got something to hide. And, you know, I've only been involved in one constituency election on the ground in the executive, if you like, of a party when the Brexit Party fought the Peterborough by-election. And I know we had very serious concerns about the way Labour went about getting its vote out. Not so much, funny enough, people going into the booth, but leaning on people for postal votes. And, you know, the Labour Party has a fantastic ground game. They know just about every single voter intention behind every front door. And they know which people can get to the polling booth and which can't. And they lean on those who can't make it to the polling booth. And there's a lot of influencing that goes on about which we are not aware. We made a complaint at the time, but the Labour Party has formed for, I know Kevin was of the view that there's very little electoral fraud. Well, we can't know how much electoral fraud there is. But what we do know is that the Labour Party does not wish to have ID, and it does know precisely what the voting intentions are of most people in their constituencies, and they are very active in leaning on those people. And
you know what, you may well, and look, you may have a very good argument about that, and I agree that there are many other aspects of life where there are processes put in place, not based on the actual evidence of things happening, but based on the potential of things happening. And so, you know, I would argue that I don't know the statistics for firework display fraud, ticketing fraud about that, but because there would have been the potential for that fraud, that's why these these ID checks were necessary. So therefore, I would use the same argument for an election, or I would have the argument that you shouldn't have ID for either. But I don't think you can have an argument, and as the mayor does, that ID isn't necessary for an election, but it is necessary for a firework display. Now, let's talk about the firework display itself. Now, it didn't, I'd be wrong to say it annoyed me, because it didn't annoy me, but I specifically asked the question today, did it make you not believe your eyes or roll my eyes? Because that was my precise reaction. I just rolled my eyes when it was the Mayor of London Presents, and rolled my eyes because, of course, we were going to get mentions of the NHS and, you know, the gays and everything else. And I don't know, would that be a fair assessment of where you are with it, or did it actually irritate you?
Well, I have an admission to make.
Yes.
I didn't watch it last night. I only watched it this morning because one of the members of your production team invited me onto the show, and I thought, well, I better watch the show. But the reason I didn't watch the fireworks was because I was rolling my eyes in 2023, a year ago, when I did take the trouble to stay up and watch. And so I put it on YouTube this morning, and I mean, I wouldn't say my eyes rolled as much as my stomach turned when I saw the intro of the Mayor of London Presents. I mean, what narcissism. This isn't about Sadiq Khan or the Mayor of London. This is about London and the United Kingdom celebrating 2023 and looking forward to 2024. And this was all about him, as you rightly said in your introduction, you know, promoting himself, promoting his division, all the ideologies he supported, divisive ideologies. It's all about the promotion of ethnic minorities to the detriment of the majority, or ethnic religious beliefs, or minority religious beliefs, or transgender ideology, critical race theory. You know, we had that suffusing the entire messaging. In fact, as I watched it, it came to the coronation, I thought, great, something overtly, unequivocally British that we can celebrate for 2023. And he managed to hijack the coronation message as well and make it about diversity. So, I mean, this is a mayor who cloaks himself in a false sort of moral correctitude in order to cover up his failings as a mayor. And the easiest way to do that, of course, is through diversity, equality, and inclusion, the promotion of all these minority rights, which for me is the embodiment and the definition of woke. So as to your first, you know, as to your opening question, yeah, this was woke. This was not wow, this was woke.
I think all that you've said are, you may disagree with them, but they're legitimate political positions to hold. You may be someone who's massively in favour of critical race theory, you may be someone who is massively in favour of diversity and inclusion, or that to a point and how far it goes, and you and I have sparred on that before. It's whether, I suppose, those elements are suitable for a nationwide firework display for New Year. I mean, because you're not arguing that those things shouldn't be included in discourse. You're arguing that basically just for a New Year firework display, they're are they overtly political, or are they
overt controversial political ideology being promoted through what should be simply a national celebration?
Then why is the, because I've thrown the coronation in with all of this, actually. I've said, look, it's got the coronation, it's got, I mean, there may be some cynical people who are watching you, Ben, which just would be you know, a surprise, I'm sure, that would say, well, hang on, you don't mind the coronation because you agree with that, but you don't like the things you disagree with. You either don't have any of it or you have all of it. So are you being a hypocrite by saying the coronation is okay?
Well, the coronation is the crowning of the King of the United Kingdom. That has to be okay.
But some people see that as a political thing they disagree with.
No,
some people don't agree with that.
It's a constitutional event. Well, they may disagree with it, but it is part of the fabric of the United Kingdom. It's a constitutional thing, you know. It is what it is. It's not a political position. He wasn't promoting monarchy against some form of republicanism. There wasn't a debate going on between, whether or not we should have a monarchy. It was just the coronation is merely a celebration of the crowning of the king of the United Kingdom.
But then could you not make that argument about equality and say, well, look, you and I have had these conversations many times before, that actually equality is an absolutely sound goal to have. What is political is the process by which you try and achieve that, and that's the same as the environment. So is there not an argument therefore to say that if the coronation is, look, this is our shared values and we're not going to talk about the politics of whether you agree or not, or whether you're a Republican or not, is there not an argument to say, well, look, then you can include equality, you can include Windrush, you can include the gays, you can include the environment, because actually they're all shared goals. What's political is the process to get there.
Well, I think equality and the environment are slightly different in this context. You and I have often said no one can argue against wishing to have a cleaner environment, and I completely agree with that as a foundation principle. But the way that equality is debated and the way the regulatory and legal framework is set up is to prevent equality. It's the promotion of minorities
but that's a political
to the detriment
position,
of the majority.
Sorry to jump in, but you're now bringing in the politics.
That's precisely
of the goal.
what equality means. That's what the Equalities Act. That's what the Equalities Act is. It's progressive discrimination. That's what diversity, equality.
No, I'm not letting you have that, because again, that's the politics of it. If you were to talk about the Equalities Act, you're right. You're absolutely right to say, look, I disagree with that element of it. But the concept of equality as a concept.
Oh, well, that's totally different. I mean, if the messaging had been everyone is equal last night, I get it. But the messaging wasn't everyone was equal. It was all about the promotion of minorities. That, the Windrush thing, for example, the gay marriage thing, all of that. And, I can't remember, all the
environment. There was a bit about the environment.
Yeah.
There was a bit about, so what were the five? There was the coronation, the environment, the gays. Well, I say the gays,
Windrush.
LGBTQI+, Windrush. NHS, obviously, because that's now almost a protected religious belief.
Well, that's a virtue signalling thing again, isn't it?
I suppose I'm just trying to drill down whether you and I are being a bit unfair about the difference between what is a shared goal, which is an acceptable one, and what is the politics, i.e. the process by which we get there. And are we being a bit unfair that some of these things are actually shared goals?
No, we're not. We're not being unfair when it comes to the way that equality is promoted, because equality is not being promoted. It's inequality that's being promoted. Division is being promoted. It's about exclusion. It's about removing. I mean, we know this from Sadiq Khan, because he inadvertently put out that photograph of two white parents with their two white children saying they do not represent Londoners. This man, his entire political existence is built on division in society. That's what he does. He bemoans the fact that there aren't more people of color in the police force. Whereas if you were to turn that on its head and say, I bemoan the fact there aren't more white people in the police force, you'd be vilified as being a racist. This man is a reverse racist.
So is this, well, I mean, he would argue that that's not the case, that he's trying to achieve equality and good representation. I know you would disagree with that, but just to be fair on him, if I must. But
why are you fair on him? There's nothing about which to be fair, Christo.
Oh, I know, but we are. He's not here to defend himself, and I need to be as fair as I can on that element of it. But then I suppose what we're getting at is actually he is leaving himself open to this criticism, because had he not said Mayor of London presents, you then are immediately watching it, aren't you, through the mindset of his political ideology. Whereas perhaps if some of those elements were in it without him saying Mayor of London presents, you might watch it and go, well, actually, yeah, the environment, nice thing, yeah, okay, fine. But because it's Mayor of London presents the environment, you're immediately thinking, oh, well, hang on. There's you, Les, and there's that you've brought in, and there's you've closed loads of roads, and you've hoiked up the amount of people have to pay. So you immediately are actually watching it through the prism of his political views. Whereas, so maybe his own ego presenting it himself is actually one of the things that has left him open to such criticism.
I mean, my stomach would have turned with all the messaging that I listened to this morning. I wish I hadn't listened to it, frankly. Even now, when I think about it, it makes
I'm worried about your stomach, Ben. I really am. I need to get you a Gaviscon before the end of the programme. I'm worried about you.
But you know, the thing that absolutely nails him, in my view, is the opening line: "The Mayor of London presents." This is nothing to do with Sadiq Khan. This is a celebration of London, celebration of the United Kingdom, looking forward to 2024. It's got nothing to do with Sadiq Khan. This is the people of London. And the minute he's lost the connection with the people, which he clearly has, he is not fit to be Mayor of London. And for many other reasons, he's not fit to be Mayor of London.
And let's not forget as well, if we're going to talk about what the Mayor of London presents, and I really don't say this flippantly, I mean, an hour ago it was revealed a teenage boy died after being stabbed shortly before midnight at the age of 16 in Camden. And I would imagine that there are a lot of people in London and across the UK that will be thinking, well, look, if the Mayor of London's going to present something, could he present a city perhaps without stabbings rife and crime through the roof?
And it's not just stabbings. Serious crime is up 30%. What they call minor crimes are up a staggering figure. The TfL prices are up staggeringly. Council taxes are up twice the rate of inflation. Houses are not being built in the way that he promised. Nothing's working. And this is after he's been in office, 2.5 terms now?
Yeah.
It's time for Sadiq Khan just to get out of public. I mean, you know, you have
Why can't he get on one of those drones? Just send him up on one of those drones, and then off he goes, and then we can all be like,
over the Suez Canal.
Yeah,
over
bye-bye.
the Suez Canal.
See you later. All right, thank you. That's Ben Habib, Deputy Leader of Reform.